Yeah, so this is just a little acknowledgement to Larry and the whole Crandell family, just to say thank you so much for this amazing memorial service. I think it's probably the best one I've ever been to, especially the video editing, just incredible testimony. And I just had a quick story to tell. It was a couple years ago. I was chairman of the Chamber of Commerce and spoke at the State of the City event with the mayor and was on stage and sort of, you get in the moment, you kind of, everything becomes a blur. But in the back, one of the things that really stands out to me is in the back of the room, after it was all over, I was walking out and Larry was sitting right there, and he sort of sought me out and he said, nice job, young man, and you did well. And I said, thank you very much. And he goes, by the way, that's a very nice double-breasted coat you've got on there. I said, oh, why, thank you. And I actually have it on now. He goes, if you notice, I've got the same one on. So he was always sort of one of those witty guys. You never quite knew where he was going with it all. But I wanted to say thank you so much on behalf of the Santa Barbara Chamber and just all the people in Santa Barbara that have touched or been touched by Larry and that he's touched. We just want to say thanks for including us in this memorial service. It was incredible. And I love leaving here with give heart. That's the challenge to each one of us. It's something I'm going to take seriously. So thanks so much, and appreciate having this opportunity to share these little stories.
Hi, my name is Byron Elton. I met Larry in 1995 when I came to Santa Barbara to run Channel 3 KYT, and he was one of the first people to reach out to me. We became dear friends after that. I remember two things that he said to me that I've never forgotten, and I'm one of the Crandell cronies, by the way. One day we were down at the Coral Casino and he said, young man, you're going to go far. That's not an observation, it's a request. And I got a big kick out of that. And then later on we were pedaling on the bike and singing some songs, and Larry said, you know, I think you're the most talented person I know. No, wait, me, not you. That was our Larry. I'm going to miss my friend. There's so much to miss. God bless you, Larry. I love you.
All right, so I came to Santa Barbara in April of 1968. And the first day at work in the DA's office, guys were getting dressed at noon to go play basketball, and I asked what that was all about. So that next Tuesday, I brought my stuff. It was my third day in Santa Barbara County. I met Larry. It was a wonderful friendship. We would play at noon, then we formed the Old Mothers, and Bertka and Crandell and I and Al Roth and a bunch of other people whose names I can't remember, Jerry Goodman, Emmett Hawks, Jim Slater, others I can't think of right now, played in this league. We actually won the league one year. We lost it more than we won, but we had a great time. And then when I decided to run for DA, Larry came up to me and said, how can I help? And I said, gee, I don't know. And he said, well, how about if I try and raise some money? So the very first campaign event I ever had in 1974, Larry was kind enough to come and talk to the crowd. We raised some money, and I've always been grateful for him and even better off for having known and loved him all this time.
Hi, my name is Diana Starr Langley. I consider myself a close friend of Larry's. We did a lot of nonprofit events together. The last one we did together was special to both of us. Sal Rodriguez and I decided to bring in Louis Zamperini to Santa Barbara for a luncheon to raise money for Boys and Girls Clubs. And I went to Larry to ask him to help me with it, and he became the MC. That gave me the excuse to have lunch with him numerous times at the Coral so we could plan our event and plan what he was going to say, and he got to help in the interviewing, and he got to meet him. And he told me that of all the stars he's met in his lifetime, that was probably one of the most magical moments for him. Both had, lost planes, and both of them had, they were contemporaries. And I think he just felt that was the kind of star that he really wanted to meet at the end of his life. So I was blessed that I got to work with Larry during that time, as well as to give him a piece of magic back, since he was always giving. It was nice to give something back. Thanks. We'll miss him.
Hi, I'm Sheriff Bill Brown, and I'd like to share a story that Larry told that was an infamous story. I'm sure many people have heard it before, but it wasn't mentioned at his memorial service. I just want to make sure that it's captured and that other people get to share in this. But I'm a military history buff and historian, and Larry was a bombardier in the Army Air Corps in World War II, and he fought in the European theater, and he was on a B-24, and he was flying on a mission, and I'm not sure if the plane was shot up or if it was a mechanical problem, but for one reason or another, this B-24 had to ditch in the Mediterranean Sea, and he survived this crash landing that the pilot flew this aircraft onto the water. And when it came to a stop, it didn't sink. It was still on top of the water, and everybody was preparing to get out. And as the water started to rush into the aircraft, I don't know if the fuel tanks had ruptured or what happened, but a lot of aviation fuel came into the fuselage, and Larry got doused with a lot of fuel. And he made his way out, and he got onto the water. They got into a dinghy. They ended up getting rescued by the air sea rescue people. But as a result of coming into contact with all of this fuel, Larry developed a pretty severe infection on his lower body. And as he was taken to a hospital, he was treated, and he had to be put into a special ward for infections. He was sent to a special facility. And it wasn't until several days later that he realized he was in the ward where everybody else had a venereal disease. And Larry said, I hadn't been with a woman at all. And he said, here I am in the venereal disease ward with all of these other people. And he said, I realized after that what I had to refer to that incident as was I had the immaculate infection. So I'm sure that's an old story for many people, but it's classic Larry Crandell. Larry was a wonderful, larger-than-life person who touched many lives, and he had that ability to lift you up whenever you were with him. And it was mentioned today that he, by doing that, caused you to go out and lift other people up as well. So, Larry, we love you, we miss you, and it's said, somebody once said that the dimensions of a man's life are measured by the causes to which he devotes himself. And Larry, your commitment to our country in World War II, the many organizations and people that you touched, the wonderful philanthropy that you did, and the impression that you left on this community makes your life a very big one indeed. God bless you.
So they mentioned a lot about Larry's basketball, and I'm one of the guys that was on the court with him a lot over the last 40 years. And one of the things that I thought was interesting was that he was one of the best trash talkers on a basketball court that I've ever seen, just like he was in wherever else he was. But the trash talking was, for instance, he gave everybody a name. My name was Hacker. Presumably that was to suggest that I was incapable of defending anyone without actually fouling them. Because it was a non-refereed game, we never really understood for sure whether I was fouling or not. In any event, he, on the other hand, was a gunner. Larry never saw a shot that he didn't like. And from anywhere on the court. And he'd invariably say, as soon as anybody on his team got the ball, pass it around, pass it around, pass it around, and we all dutifully did that until it got to Larry, at which point he would immediately shoot the ball. And he'd do it with this great Syracuse special shot of his, which started somewhere below his groin, and then it was two-handed, and it went up and up and up, and as soon as he launched it, he'd start a countdown, 4, 3, 2, 1. And if it went in, which it did a lot, he'd say, splash, game over, we won. And he'd say this whether we were in the middle of the game, or we'd only scored 4 points, or it was at the end of the game. It was never at the end of the game, actually. But he always had a wonderful time. And he actually involved me in a seniors basketball championship in which we traveled all over California. And he was over 60, I was over 50, and he made it very clear to me the only reason I was on his team is that he needed somebody over 50, and he couldn't find anybody else. And then we had somebody over 40, and then we had a ringer who, because of his knowledge of people around in the sports world, he'd get some 6'10" player from Ventura who played Italian basketball, in the pro leagues. In any event, we'd go and play these games, and I got to travel with him, and it was just a charm. He was charming all the time. It was a lot of fun, and we're going to miss him. Thanks.
So I moved from Santa Barbara to San Francisco in 2007, and luckily my work brings me down here occasionally. And when I did come, I would try to have lunch with Larry, but I knew that eventually I wasn't going to be able to have lunch with him anymore, and I was dreading the day when I would hear that he died. And when I did hear that he died, and I heard that afternoon, I pulled out my book, Silver Tongue, and sat in my bedroom and just started flipping through the passages that I love so much. And then I looked at the front, and he had inscribed that when he gave those books away or sold them, he inscribed for everybody. And I knew he had inscribed my book, but when I opened it up, there on the front page it said to Bill or somebody like that, and there was a whole big long paragraph, and then there was a line through it, and underneath it it said to Paula, "We're good enough friends that I can give you a secondhand book." And it just cracked me up because it was perfect Larry. So that's story number one. I managed the Santa Barbara Incubator for a number of years, and those were very special years to a lot of people. Larry was able to finagle his way into an office there, and he lit the place up with inspiring people and giving them advice, and myself included. And he became like a father to me. And we did a lot of things together. We served on a couple of committees, fundraising committees, and did a lot of work together. And I used to have breakfast with him once a week. It was wonderful, and we got to be very close. So I think it was 2003 or something like that. I was planning a wedding for my sister. She lives in Boston. Her fiance's family was from Naples, Florida, and they all had decided to come to Santa Barbara and have the wedding at our house. And I planned this wonderful affair for 80 to 90 people and activities, and it was going to be just gorgeous, and it was really beautiful. But I was not a speaker, and I was so afraid that after they were married in the front yard, and then we would go to the backyard with the tents and all of the kasbahs that I had put together for the wedding. It was a Moroccan theme, and that I would screw up the reception. And I was telling him about it, and I said, "You know how bad I am about speaking in public." And he said, "Oh, yes, you are." And he said, "Don't worry, I'll do it." And he did. He came 2 days early. He met my entire family that had come into town. He met my sister and her fiance at the time. He met his family who flew in from Naples. He spent 2 days doing all of that and actually put together such a beautiful evening for my sister because I couldn't do it myself. And that was just pure love, and I just love you, Larry. I just love you.
Okay, so my name is Holly Principe Joseph, and I'm a hospice social worker. And I'm speaking in behalf of myself and the nurse that worked with me, part of the hospice team. And her name is Tajazvi. And I wanted just to tell the family, the first thing your dad said to me, he was lying in bed, he had a lot of pain, he didn't know who I was. I walked into the bedroom, he got up on his side and his forearms, and he looked at me and he said, "What can I do for you?" And I thought, that's amazing that he could say that in the great amount of pain that he was enduring. But I also wanted to tell the family sitting in the audience today that the line from his mother in compassionate kindness and love filtered through your dad and into the children, because for the nurse, to Josby and myself and the rest of the hospice team from assisted hospice, we just felt a tremendous support from the family, incredible loving, and we would do the simplest things, and there was so much appreciation for the family and Vista Del Monte. And if you go into the nurses' station at Vista Del Monte, you'll see this giant poster of Larry right there in the nurses' station. And they love him too, because he made such a mark on all of our lives, as well as the family. So that line of love from your grandmother to your father and your father, it's almost not even describable, because it's such a wonderful lineage, and you carry it. And speaking for the nurse who's on call today and couldn't be here, we were glad to be a part of his life.
Hi, I'm Jill Nida, and I met Larry, like most people, at a fundraiser. But more than that, we knew him through the board of County Savings Bank. He was on the board, and I was never more happy than when I got to be seated with Larry and Marcy. I was a big fan, am still a big fan, and Larry always loved to hear me laugh. He often told me he wished he could figure out how we could can my laugh and sell it. Anyway, I love you, Larry. I wish somebody would make me laugh right now. But thank you for all you've done for us. Love you. Bye.
Hi, my name is Barry Leiker. I've known Larry since about the time he came here to Santa Barbara. I'm a native son, almost 80 years old, and I had a lot of fun with Larry over the years. I thought I was his biggest fan, but he was my biggest fan. And I used to work for the Lakers years ago. I used to be part of Larry's pickup basketball games, and when I worked with the Lakers, I took him down there a couple times and took him in the dressing room to meet the players, and he just really was like a kid in a candy store. So in my infinite wisdom, I stole some stationery from the Lakers, and I have it here in my hand. I'd like to read a letter that I sent to Larry. It was on Laker stationery, and it reads as follows, dated back in 1981. Dear Larry, we're interested in talking and taking a look at you on the court. If you measure up to our standards, we would like to offer you a lucrative contract for the remainder of the current season. Keep in mind, this is 1981. Your basketball prowess has come to our attention from one of our statisticians in your area. That's me. We have reviewed the film of your recent charity benefit basketball game on Channel 3. We were impressed with your defense with that last-minute steal against one of the better backcourt men around. That was me. He stole the ball from me. Your showmanship on that drive and that lay-in was more exciting than a sexual experience. You must realize, of course, Larry, that we can offer you no guarantees. It's, however, possible that you could break into the starting lineup with what we have heard about you. You could give us that magic that we need for the playoffs. Finally, Larry, you must realize we cannot guarantee you a share of the playoff money. Please call my office so that we can arrange a tryout at our team practice where our players will have a chance to critique you. We will only have to put one of our players on the injured reserve list in order to put you on our roster. We will alert the press. Please get a haircut, Larry, and look good for our photographers. Yours in basketball, Director of Public Relations. And he just loved that so much. Today they were talking about how Larry loved to give to other people and make them better. And he made me better because he showed this letter to all of his friends, and it just really made my day. So, Larry, I love you. It was great to be with you. Have a great day.
Okay, I'm Marin Crandell. I am Larry's granddaughter. And although I didn't grow up in California, I used to visit regularly during the summers, and I used to spend them with my grandparents. And Grandpa was the only living grandpa I had, so I didn't have much to compare him to. But I quickly learned that he was a very dynamic man. He would take me out for pancakes at Moby Dick's, which was one of his favorites, and always make sure I got whipped cream on top for him, really, but for my enjoyment as well. And And then he would take me to his events, and I'd get to see him speak. And, you know, for me, it wasn't something I was really accustomed to, is going to these grand events as, you know, a 7-year-old or a 12-year-old, and getting to see all these people dressed up and, you know, raise money for charity. And it was amazing to me that the same grandpa that I would have pancakes with in the morning would be out, you know, turning it on with the same charm and delight and love for people who he didn't know, and to really open his heart for everybody. And it wasn't in a superficial way. He meant it. He meant everything. When he asked you how you were doing, he was generally interested in how you were doing. He'd ask you about your family. He'd ask you about, you know, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse, whoever was most important to you. He'd ask you about your parents. He just had this genuine love and care, and that's something that I really hope that I can honor him by bestowing into my children. I already have one son with my husband, Weston, and I can see his little Spitfire-ness, and I hope he has that same mischievous love for attention and goodwill that my grandpa had. And if I could raise him to be just a quarter of a person that my grandpa was, then I will consider my time on this earth completely worthwhile and well spent. So to my grandpa, I love you. I miss you very much, and I am so honored for the time that we had together. And you will never be forgotten, because you live on in all of our hearts and our memories. God bless.